What's up, everybody? Wow, I almost forgot for a second to even say anything. I was like, hey, CC can start it off. But how is everybody? Hopefully you guys got to see our last episode with Otangelo. It was a great episode. If you hadn't seen that, go back and check that out. Don't pause this one to go watch it, of course. Watch this one and then go through. This is Axioms on Trial, if you're not familiar. We have discussions with really pretty much anybody, anyone that wants to invite themselves on, but mainly we really want some theists on. So if you're a theist and you're watching this, please reach out to us, email us. It's at the bottom. It goes across the screen for the whole entire episode of the show. Send us an email and see if you want to have a conversation about really any given topic we're down to discuss. So with that said, I'll shut up and pass it to Cease. I know you have a couple things you want to talk about, and then we'll go on to the main dish of the show.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks everyone for joining in, as always. If you do watch the last episode, you'll see me progressively get more annoyed as that interview went on. It was really exhausting for me, but we got through it, and I am glad that he at least came on, even though I disagree with everything he said. But the thing I want to address is something that I mentioned, I think, last week as well. But there's been a couple other instances that I think I need to talk about. And about a month ago, I was on the EA show with Justin, who's recently converted to Islam. And my brother, who's a black hole cosmologist and physicist and educator, was also on with me. And we had a conversation with, I think, 3 different Muslims. But if Justin, if you're listening, I would love to have you on our show to talk about your journey. I never had any issue with you. I still don't. Obviously, I disagree with what you believe and what you find convincing, and I think it would be cool to have that conversation. What I was frustrated by, however, was the people that he had on the show, because I saw later on that they went on social media saying things like, don't bring a knife to a gunfight, making it seem like they had somehow annihilated us in the conversation, when they switched the terminology that was used when we were talking.
Let me cut you there too, because I went actually back onto that video and posted just a clip. It's during the discussion with Andrew Loke and Graham Oppie. At 44 minutes in, they talk about PSR. They talk about the Kalam and what explanation, or how the PSR is couched in explanation versus causes and things like that. And so this isn't. I wanted to point out that the objection is a common objection, that they felt like they had an up on you guys, and it was weird because I was like, this isn't like an uncommon one, and even if it was, why not just refute the argument as opposed to just kind of putting rhetoric out more so.
But the issue is that it's at that point, at least from my perspective, it's a different argument. You're not talking about causality. You're talking about something different. So it was just the way that it was handled that I felt was somewhat intellectually dishonest on their part. And it's the thing that really has gone under my skin, and I mentioned this before, was a few times I've been on other shows, like the Bored Skeptic show, and I think I see in the comment section, hello there. And one of them came on and tried to insulted me for no reason, which again, that doesn't affect me. But it's the fact that then, they don't come on. If you're going to talk shit, then come on the show and engage us. Instead, when you were asking them to come on, they started saying things like, well, why are you running away? Or saying things like, let's find another channel that's, what was the word they used to you?
Neutral.
It's like, we didn't go on a neutral channel when we had the conversation. We went on a channel with someone who just converted to Islam. So what is this thing where they're accusing you of running away, and then they're scared to come on our show? They watch any of our episodes. We don't talk over people. We let people say their piece, and then we respond appropriately. So I don't understand this weird projection that they're doing. From my perspective, the philosophy they find convincing is only convincing to people who are not at all in the field, who are outsiders of the field. This kind of stuff wouldn't be taken seriously, in a 101 introduction to philosophy class. Like, that's my experience of having been doing this for as long as I have.
And having an actual formal education and being through kind of a department.
Sure, but I mean, there are people with degrees that don't know shit, so I'm not even going there. But I'm saying, if you think I'm wrong and you're confident enough that you can expose me, and this goes for anybody, the Muslims in that conversation, anybody on Discord who watches what we do but then talks shit on Discord, anybody who's watching the shows, you know where to find us. We're not hiding. Send us an email. Come on and we have the conversation, and I'll remain respectful. I won't talk over you. I'll let you say what you say, and then I'll respond the way that I think I should respond. But it just the shit talking without any kind of backing it up that just gets on my nerves, because it's just like it's embarrassing. And so that's all I want to say on that. If you have it, just come on the show and stop whining. That's basically it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I was, and I'm someone that's like, fine, whatever, we'll do it wherever. But the more I thought about it, I was like, yeah, I mean, you guys went on there. I mean, why? I would have no problem saying, hey, let's do 2 more conversations, one on your channel, one on ours. Everybody gets the views. Everybody gets I wouldn't mind that, but
I'll go on any show, but we're also trying to get our own content out.
Yes, when you throw the running away thing, it's like, I have a thing that goes across the screen every episode for the last 39 episodes. It says, if you want to get in contact with us, in every episode we go, I said at the beginning of the show, we need more theists. I wouldn't want theists on if I was running away from that. So it's like, it's always, you get this really weird, like, pseudo intellectual where it's like a battle thing. Whereas when you actually talk to people in the field, these conversations are taken with great care and
it's not an ego thing. We're not trying to compete here. Let's have a conversation and try to get at what makes sense here.
Yeah. But anyway, we went on for a minute
having
there,
said all that,
but let's do it. Let's have you do the honors while I get set up on the transitions for the introduction.
So our guest is one of my favorite TikTokers that I've seen so far. Bittybuddha, I think, is how you pronounce her name. I hope I pronounced that right. But I like her content, so I wanted to bring her on and talk to her about her experience with religion and what her feelings are about it. So. And
if you're not on TikTok or something of that nature, this should be the one reason that you go check it out. Check our channel out. We'll leave the links for that in the the description of the video. So if you're watching this after the fact, go check below right now and go click on that. But yeah. I'm always proud when I get a transition to it. Hey, Bitty, how you doing? I'm glad you had a chance to come on and talk with us. It's always good to have anyone from our position or theist or whoever. We always try to extend that out to people. So we appreciate you wanting to come on.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. So I know you had some things like right away we could kind of break the ice and go into, but before I guess we do that, is there anything you wanted to plug or kind of give a background on yourself for the audience or some things like that before we get started into that?
You can find me on TikTok. That I developed an audience by accident. And I just got on Twitter. I really don't do much on there, but it's basically TikTok is where you can find me.
Yeah, it was I know you were at like 90,000 a while ago. You probably broke over the 100, right?
No. I've basically just hiatus, and I'm just like trickling in a few at a time, and I'm watching like all these other TikTokers just blow up, and I'm like, what is happening? But I was like in TikTok jail for quite a while.
Yeah, it happens, especially if you step on the right toes. you get some people mass banning your content. And I know a lot of people are dealing with that. Jeff deals with that on a daily basis.
Yeah, I think he's on 9 almost.
It's ridiculous.
I was going to be I was going to be hyperbolic and say 7, but that's actually less than the real figure. That's great.
Yeah. My computer is about to die, and I should have plugged
plug it in.
So let me quickly grab that cord.
Okay.
Yeah, no worries. Okay. We'll throw this over here. So yeah, if you haven't subscribed or anything like that, or you don't do TikTok, the TikTok thing is weird. I've taken pretty much a backseat to it in the sense that it's just not as interesting. I like doing this a lot more, but yeah, I think it is good for any atheist that feels like they have something to offer to duet or challenge some theist video on there, or some, whatever it might be on TikTok, because I've noticed with the community we've built, there's a lot of people that have changed their opinion and have reached out to us. It's not just myself, not just Bitty. I'm pretty sure, Notes from Autumn's probably, I'm, speaking just off the top of my head potentially, but I would assume that would be the case. There's always some leeway you can make. And if not, the theist is also, I feel like, doing kind of the same thing, where you're going to try to present your case. And that's why I kind of like the format, is that it's two people kind of going back and forth for you to kind of analyze and see who's got better arguments in a short period of time, even though it's as cancerous as TikTok can be,
Yeah, I've thought about TikTok, but I feel pretty uncomfortable with that kind of platform, mostly because I don't know how to get across points in like
60 seconds.
Short. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah.
I'm not a fast talker. Like I don't think I would really be suited for that. And then also the idea of people getting something like 100,000 followers, that sounds terrifying to me.
Yeah.
I don't know what. I don't know.
Also, James is right. We are close to 1,000. I don't think we have acknowledged that yet.
That's crazy.
But it's crazy. Yeah. So thank you, everybody, on that.
Thank you.
And James, thank you for reminding. But yeah, anyway, so get the TikTok stuff out of the way, because this is the real meat of it. I'll pass that to you, Cease. I know you got some questions, and I guess we'll go from there.
Yeah. So I guess my first question was, what is your background in religion? And what are your feelings about deconversion and that kind of thing?
So I was raised in a super conservative evangelical household, and I went to private school where I learned I did church every Sunday at a non-denominational church, and then I had a private school, like youth group on Wednesdays, chapel on Wednesdays, and I became super rebellious in my high school years. And so that's where I just kind of left the church, but it was never really my faith. And then went into tattooing, which is there's a lot of misconceptions that I used to be super sheltered and all this stuff. And I was, but then I rebelled and I went into tattooing. And so that's kind of where I got my collection. And so I did that for about 6 years, because the people I met at my school, a lot of religious trauma. And so I was tattooing, and then I got in this YouTube rabbit hole of end time prophecy shit. And I remember sitting in my living room, and I had this Jesus met me in my living room experience, and I repented. And so you could see, how Christians talk about the evidence for God. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. They talk about the evidence for God is this transformation. And so I was tattooing. I started to feel convicted about it, because obviously in the Bible it says not to. And you could really see my life start to alter to be more scripturally consistent. And so I left that career. And then I got really into Pentecostal stuff. And I actually used to host healing conferences, revivals.
Wow.
I used to take teams out to Minneapolis. We'd try to pray the gay away, and we'd street heal, and we'd do all that shit.
Well, can I ask you before that? You said you had a coming to Jesus kind of moment.
Yeah.
What it could you walk me through that, and then how you reconciled the experience to being not the experience that you initially had given it?
Yeah. And I think if every Christian was honest with themselves, it's never as extravagant as you portray it to be. But I had been emotionally manipulated through these videos to feel guilty, like Jesus is coming. Oh shit, I'm not living for him. I gotta change things around. And so I like got on my knees on my living room and I prayed, like repented and for him to come into my heart and all that stuff. And in my mind, Jesus was there. I didn't see him. Nobody has ever seen him, even if they say they have. Like in my mind, he was in this living room with me. And like, this was the first time that I wanted to do this. But again, I was sort of manipulated through the YouTube to just play on a lot of indoctrination that I had, such as like the rapture. And like, if you grew up in that, I don't know if you did.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I didn't
horrific videos.
I didn't grow up with any of it. So my always thought process is like, I think there's a reason someone's drawn to it. Like when I see maybe a Westerner become Muslim or something like that, it seems that or even just an atheist become a Christian. It seems that there's like something they're drawn to that they like about the religion that makes that feeds that kind of ability to eventually allow kind of that delusional aspect to go in. For one, it could just be, I really like this type of culture, or I really like the idea of the disciples and this whole, like, it seems like that for me is the only way, as someone who's never experienced it, that there's something they attach to. Was there that for you, or no? Like, were you bought into from the videos just to go,
yeah,
I like this thing, I want to be a part of it, and then you just went into it? Or?
For me, it was my background that played into my decision that day. But I think when you see these dramatic transformation stories, like, so I was raised in it, and that's kind of why I went back to it. But, you know, these atheist stories, or I was a drug addict, or, you know, I was like just these really like big transformation stories. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of it is they just have a lot of guilt, and Christianity specifically allows you to give up that guilt. Jesus is your scapegoat. You get to somehow now feel better about yourself. So I think like it's a lot of that.
That makes a lot of sense, actually, too. You kind of absolve those things. And I've always wondered that, like, my thing is kind of like, I mean, are you only a good person because of the belief? Because I know, like, I do things, or I might say things, and I feel crummy about it, right? And I feel just like that wasn't smart. I shouldn't have talked to my mom or my dad that way. Like, there's ways, but that is a good point, because it seems like there's a whole other level of someone drawing to something because maybe they have some really deep skeletons. And that's something I've always wondered. It's like, even if that's the case, like, why you need to like, what does that do for you to just throw it off of you and put it on something else?
So think about it this way. So you're feeling guilty, right? Like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. And rather than like reconcile that feeling and, you know, mend that relationship or whatever it is that you did, you get to go, Jesus, just forgive me for that. And you feel better. You don't actually have to do any sort of like work on yourself. You don't have to make amends. You don't have to ever be uncomfortable. You don't have to be accountable for any of the shit that you just did. And who wouldn't like that? You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just such an easy out. But
one of the things I find so immoral about Christianity is exactly that kind of scapegoating. Mm-hmm. The idea that you can somehow eliminate your responsibility by putting it on somebody else through a human sacrifice. Like, I find that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I've never understood that. Like, I know we hijacked your kind of story into it. I figured
that's good.
We just kind of go all over the place with it, but that's one thing. It's like, and when someone talks to me about Jesus or whatever, like if I brought up on the street, I remember I had a delivery one time. I was working for Pizza Hut. Okay, and I'd go to this guy's house and he starts talking to me. He's like, "You believe in Jesus?" And I'm like, "It's $29.95, sir. You know, like, I don't have time for this." Yeah. And he's just like very insistent on it. And I hadn't started like any podcast or anything about it. And I was like, "No, sir. Actually, I don't believe, but I'm actually playing with the idea of like speaking out against this." You know, and I'm like explaining this to him or whatever. And he's like, "Well, let me tell you about Jesus and how great of his sacrifice was." And it every time someone's giving me a story, I look at them like, you're nuts. Like, I get this vibe, like, You think sending someone to die brutally was like the only option from an omnipotent God? He couldn't have done it a different way, and that's somehow a good thing that we should all be proud of. That's a weird thing. That is barbaric, and just we're past that. Like, we don't have to live that way anymore. We don't have to think like this. But yeah, I've never understood that. It's always been like gruesome and just weird to me that someone would go, well, Jesus died for us. What did he die for? He's the king of everyone now. That's like the greatest gig. I will take that gig all day long. I give up 3 days and I'll be the king of every person.
And that's actually the required. That was actually the required prophecy, was for him to be king, and then all the Jews come back to Israel. But he didn't fulfill that one. But don't tell that to Christians.
And what do we say about Judas too? It's like we praise Judas like because he made the determined outcome the way that it's supposed to happen. It's like it leaves all these weird questions. Where like I'll take an abductive assessment and say this is clearly written by men at this point, like, and feel okay with that. Like,
yeah, you don't see it. You don't see the toxicity. I certainly didn't. I did not have it was like rose-colored glasses or whatever that expression is, because I see it everywhere now. Like now, that's why I make TikToks and I'm kind of condescending in them, because I'm mad at myself that I didn't see this stuff beforehand.
Sure. Yeah.
So.
You had talked about when you went back to it, you were doing healings and that kind of thing. Tell me about what that experience was like, and then what brought you back to your senses from that?
Okay. So yeah, it got kind of crazy. There was a lot of spiritual stuff. And I even knew at the time that I was lying. I was exaggerating these stories and, this person got healed. There was no evidence for it. And I knew it, but I was so trying to grasp onto it. So my husband was atheist throughout my whole roller coaster of religion. And he started to show me videos of like the power of suggestion. And I think there was somebody, he's a magician, and I don't know his name, but he used to go possibly he would go on the streets and he would do fake healings.
Oh, that's Darren Brown.
Darren Brown, right? Darren Brown.
Yeah, just show how
two of my
stupid it
heroes.
was.
Yeah, I love those guys. Two.
Yeah. So he showed me a lot of those videos, and I was like, okay. And then I didn't want to be fooled again, and so I swung the other direction and went super Baptist. So now it's just whatever's in the Bible. And so I learned a lot of new things from going that direction. Basically, I was kind of deconverting myself throughout this entire thing, because after that experience of feeling so stupid that I had been fooled by all of these, smoke and mirrors and charades and just being overcome emotionally, I knew I couldn't trust my emotions anymore. Sure. So I went strictly to what was the word saying, and I just wanted truth. And so I kind of transitioned out of Baptist to Messianic Judaism. I know there's a lot of controversy over that title, but basically it was Judaism with believing that Jesus is the Messiah. Where Judaism believes it's a closed system, but I digress. And so basically going that direction, I learned everything that I know now, and how inheriting that kind of Hebraic mindset and what the authors of the Bible meant and the authenticity, and then learning a little bit of Hebrew. Basically then, by learning all of this, and like I was deconstructing all of these church doctrines, I felt like I finally got to a place where this was starting to make sense. And then my husband swoops in again, and he starts showing me videos of apologia. And
nice.
And he showed me, I remember.
Shout out to Apologia, by the way.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I love him. I didn't at the time, but my husband showed me
naturally.
One video. Yeah. He showed me one video specifically, and I think it was It's Okay to Be Smart. I don't know if you're familiar with that channel. On evolution.
Yes, I am. That guy's all. It's kind of like similar to like a Hank Green for the.
I think he's Hank Green's brother, isn't he?
I don't know that if he is.
John Green.
Cool. Oh, I didn't know he did that. I guess they have different hosts, or maybe I'm thinking of a different show. But yeah, I know which one you're talking about. It's okay to be smart. Yeah,
maybe I'm mistaken. I'm pretty sure though. But
cool channel, regardless if whoever's wrong. So yeah.
And so he showed me this video on evolution because obviously I was a creationist, 6,000-year-old Earth, literal days, all that stuff. And he showed me a video on whale hands, and I was like, "What?" Because if you're brought up into it, you don't know what you don't know. And so he was bringing this like cognitive dissonance to me all the time, and I hated it. But I believe truth should withstand scrutiny, so I just started this rabbit hole of that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that stuck, and I was like, okay, I can get down with evolution. I could see God's involvement, and Judaism does kind of support evolution. So I was like, okay, I can reconcile this issue here.
I'm actually glad that you say it like that, because I think it would be weird for someone to go, evolution's true, therefore I abandon the theism ship or even something like that. It's like that would be weird. So
yeah,
it seems like an honest approach that you're taking.
Well, a lot of Christianity is it's either Christianity or evolution, as if they are. No, they don't.
I hold a different position in the sense that I think if you believe in evolution, you can't be a Christian. Like I think that I'm someone that says when you say I don't take this literally. I think you're just writing your own Bible. You're just creating your own narrative. It's not the actual one you're supposed to be reading. But but that said, it seems contradictory for me to say that. I say that in the sense that I don't think someone should immediately recognize that as an issue and just say, well, maybe we got this wrong in the Bible. Like I could see the reconciliation, but I could never have someone go, oh, well, the creation story was really evolution in some way. I'm like, no, it's not. It's not in any way, and it's not a metaphor. This is what they thought. They thought two people respond here, one from a rib, even though he just created the entire world ex nihilo, and now he has to use it. It's like, okay, whatever. We'll ignore that. But
it should have been evident from the beginning, sort of. Yeah.
But sorry.
No, yeah. So it was evolution, was part of the deconstruction. And then finally, it was more apologia videos. Actually, I think it was R and Ra, the flood. And then it was like, well, shit, I don't know what I believe anymore. And I decided, I don't know if you're familiar with Descartes' rotten apple analogy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I just threw everything out and started looking at everything without a bias. I was listening to atheist arguments. I was listening to Christian apologetics, just all this shit. And I just came out an atheist. There was no holding on to it anymore. Once you are there's a reason why Christianity stays kind of, in their own echo chamber, because it can't withstand all of this, of the outside world. So,
yeah.
Well, I just want to say, I have a lot of respect for you in that sense, because of the fact that, having been brought up the way that you were, and then being wrapped up in this thing so emotionally, the fact that you were able to be honest with yourself, that's not something a lot of people can do. So,
Well, I appreciate that. It was hard. I think I went into a pretty depressive state for about a year because I loved it. I loved it so much. When I got to the Judaism, I loved it. I had a community. We hung out together. Like, it was homeschool groups. I was so heavily involved that it was really hard to leave, but I couldn't pretend that's not me at all. So,
yeah, I think one thing that I think we all seek to some degree, some less than others, is some sense of community. And so I think you'll be, I think that's what some of us are trying to build here is a community for atheists or non-believers or agnostics who still feel like they have something to rely on when these things end up falling apart.
Yeah, I think this community is amazing, absolutely amazing, and I can't believe how quickly I was adopted. It was cool.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was trying to say something real quick. Yeah, I'll have to learn to hit the unmute button sometime eventually, but eventually we'll get there. Yeah, I was gonna say everyone in that community. I want to chime in on that. Is like very open arms. We even got a like a big Skype group with how many people in there? It's like 25 people or something like that in there now.
Yeah.
So yeah, everybody's really, really cool. And that's why I was saying while you were getting your charger, like if you're an atheist or a theist or whatever you are, like you should go on TikTok and take advantage of that, because it's really tight knit. You can actually get some really, if you have friends here on YouTube or in the comments you see, I mean, it's just that plus more, because you can actually interact, do videos with them, create content with them or whatever. So I just wanted to say that real quick before we moved on.
Yeah. And I feel like I know you guys personally. Like,
yeah, it's weird. Yeah.
Like I talk about you to friends outside of TikTok. I'm like, oh, my friend Atheist Jesus. It's like so fun.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to hijack you there.
No, you're good.
With my mic muting.
Okay, so yeah, the other question I want to ask you was, what are some common misconceptions that both atheists and theists have about the Bible?
Well, with Christians, let's see. I think the doctrine of hell, I think the resurrection, Jesus's divinity, the virgin birth, the resurrection, if I already didn't say that, his birth. There's so many misconceptions about what their own book says. And that's why I make TikToks on all of the topics. And I try to break that down for people. And I think it does help for the most part, going into each one and why. Like, so basically my content is teaching the Bible authentically to Christians and then letting them decide, because that's how I pretty much deconstructed where I got where I was using the Bible. So I don't typically take the route that other atheist creators take. In fact, I've had a few Christians tell me that I am a Bible atheist because I just use the Bible and I know it and I help people learn it, because I think you can deconstruct using the Bible. And so that's why I address all these misconceptions. And I think for atheists, now obviously everybody's different. I think my biggest problem I see atheists doing is glorifying the character Jesus. I do not think that he is what Western American Christianity has created him to be. I think that he is a very toxic character, and he doesn't, even if you were to say I'm a progressive Christian and I just want to emulate Christ, I don't think that that is a good thing. And so that's probably my opinion, but I think I differ from a lot of.
And why is that? Why do you think it's not a good thing?
Because if you actually read his teachings, he followed the Torah. He taught the Torah. He says, anybody that teaches the least of these commands will be considered least in the kingdom of heaven. Those commands included slavery. They included genocide. They include, Shabbat, all these things. Not that that's bad, but he taught the Torah. He wanted people to and if you look at 1 John 3:4, it says, sin is lawlessness. What is the law in Hebrew? Torah. So he was teaching the law. Now, we all agree that the law is pretty toxic. And he added this element to his ministry of like thought crimes. So now I have this. So if I don't have to be committing adultery, I just have a thought and now I'm guilty. And that's a whole new level of absolute toxicity, because I don't know. I don't see it as him as a good character. I don't think he's as socialist as everybody says he is. Right. But that's me.
No, I share that. It seems to me that he's a highly contradictory character, like most of the Bible. Like you have verses that condemn slavery, and then you have verses that support it.
You have, but the issue is, and this is why I don't necessarily believe he was real, is because you have the Jews taking problem with him being fulfilling all the requirements to be the Messiah. So you have people writing the Gospels. Now, that's another misconception Christianity has, is that they think the disciples wrote the Gospels. That's not true. These are anonymous sources. And this is why they're trying so hard to reconcile Jesus with what was required to be the Messiah, because they are a branch of Judaism. And so they don't know what the hell they're talking about, most of them. And so that's why you're going to see these contradicting ideologies for sure.
Right. No, I definitely get what you're saying. When I debate theists, I try to give them all the ammunition that I can. So I usually don't approach it, with the idea that Jesus didn't exist.
Yeah.
Although I think there are decent arguments for that case. For me, it's, I want to give them all the arguments they think they can have to still show them that it's actually relevant.
Yeah.
They still don't get anywhere with it.
Yeah.
So I see, just real quick, I see.
I wanted to say just one thing about this, so I'm not going off in the comments about it. He said that the Shroud of Turin is good evidence, or that it's legit. It literally dates, carbon dating. Okay, so I'm looking at a peer-reviewed paper I posted in the comments already. It was about someone that a lot of Christians were using, about how they showed a blunt force trauma on the shroud, and so they were saying that's indicative of perhaps Jesus. That was retracted. They retracted the paper. So it's like, literally, I just posted in there. You can go read. It's retracted. There was an initial paper done in 1988 about this with carbon dating. It's been done several times since, and I'm reading it now. 1216, 1390, 80 with 95% confidence. If you want to hedge your bets on the 5% there, which there's no. He says the 88 has been disproven. That is, it wouldn't even matter if the 88 one had shown faults in their experiment. We have since confirmed this with better methods. Like, this isn't like I was going to cite the 88 one and then just go down the list with you, and so I'll provide that for you.
The problem with
Otangelo, it won't be a message board too. It'll be an actual peer-reviewed paper.
Yeah, you damn it, you got there before I could.
Yeah,
the problem with Otangelo is that he has convinced himself that his misquoting of scientists on his own message board counts as evidence for the claims he's making. And it's just, that's all I'll say about that. I just find it embarrassing. This is just a typical case of not understanding the burden of proof. But having said that, I'll ask you the next question. What has the reaction been towards you since you started putting out these videos on from the Christians?
From the Christians, everything I expected. A lot of gaslighting, a lot of threats, a lot of disagreements. But that was to be expected. I assumed it was going to go that way. What I am surprised about is the atheist community. Something I've learned, and I was going to make a TikTok on this, is that all throughout Christianity, it's about fitting in. So it's assessing the situation and seeing how you fit into it. And I was amazing at hustling for approval. And I think what has pushed me is that the atheists have taught me belonging. So it's not it doesn't require us to change who we are. It required us to be who we are. And I think that this has taught me so much. And you guys have been so amazing, because I was so accustomed to being, okay, I see, this person and I've got to adopt their methods. And I see this person, this is what I did in Christianity. And so now there's such acceptance for who I am without having to even do anything different. And so making these TikToks, I think I've grown as a person.
That's awesome. I'm really glad to hear that. And, I'm sure that you've gone through a lot of trauma, and I'm glad that you're healing, that you feel accepted. And
yeah, it's been amazing. I've had 2 times of feeling like I belonged, and that was when I was in the tattoo industry, and that community was just a bunch of misfits, and we all got our own trauma. And then the atheist community has been belonging. They just accept you for who you are. You don't have to change. And Christianity has never allowed so connection is based off of authenticity and presenting yourself as imperfect as it is. And I could never have connections because Christians are not allowed to be vulnerable. You can't say, yeah, I'm having doubts, because you're going to get judgment, you're going to get shame, and possibly ostracized. And it's so different here. I mean, I was struggling with a lot of the negative feedback that I was getting, and I was just so overwhelmed with it. And I was met with vulnerability and empathy. And that is how connections grow. And that is so apparent in the atheist community. And absolutely, I've never seen empathy in Christianity whatsoever.
Yeah, I would say for myself, I can understand the appeal of religion in the sense that a lot of people want to feel like they belong. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, even if it's, like you said, there was no empathy there or a lot of judgment, it seems to give some kind of structure and a sense of community, and people are drawn to that more than necessarily the ideas themselves.
Yeah.
I've never had that drive. Like I've always felt like an outsider, and I don't say that with sadness. Like, that is how I've always felt, and I'm fine with that. And so I never had that drive. I would say the closest thing to a community and a family that I have found since then is, like you're saying now, this atheist community that we're building. Mm-hmm. You know, I've met so many amazing people that I feel very close to, and that has been really wonderful. The next thing for me has been probably the philosophy department that I'm a part of, the people that I've met there, and the conversations that we've had. But even then, we're all, we're a community in the sense that we share this one love, but most of our beliefs are so different.
Yeah, I guarantee all your intuitions about things are just so much varied. Right?
One of my closest friends that I've met from school, we don't agree on anything. We're literally polar opposite as far as what our ideologies are in the context of philosophy.
Okay. Can I ask a question real quick and see if Bitty would want to respond to this, because we have upset Mr. John Maddox in the comments. I think that's his name. I hate to say this, but this girl must have lived in a very narrow world. I mean, he's known you for all of probably 15 seconds through a YouTube video, but John Maddox has the insight of a god, apparently better than his own. So could you please fill him in on the information?
I think that's the easiest excuse to make, because I will never be the warranter of my own decision. And so you need to vilify me or say I don't have the accurate understanding, or I didn't have the experience. This is just prototypical Christian behavior, and I don't care to address it. It's not important to me. I'm not going to change his mind of his opinion on me.
Yeah.
I'll just follow up just real quick with that. Any state of true Christianity, like, they think these books are so contradictory. Every Christian thinks he's the true Christian and that everybody else is a heretic. Yeah. So, I'm sure that maybe your experience potentially has been different, but that you don't speak for everybody else. People go through what they go through. We're talking about, tendencies here. So that said,
yeah, it's just typically the no true Scotsman fallacy.
It's funny you say that, because he started it off with, seriously, true Christianity.
There it is.
So I mean, it's brilliant that that's spoken the way it is.
I know there may be Christians that are not that way, but the majority, I think, like, you have to believe in a set of rules that are told to you, that these are the things you have to follow. How is that not fitting in? You can't question these things. Or, the amount of people that I know that went to religious school that got in huge trouble for even questioning or asking questions about those things. Mm-hmm. That doesn't make sense. How has religion impacted womanhood, do you think, historically?
I think it's been detrimental. It's just been absolutely horrible on the value of women. And I think I've been wanting to research this more. because I made a TikTok on the value of women in the Bible, and people were telling me, well, there's never been any religion that has placed value on women. And that was such a really weird comment, because if this one is true, why does it just follow suit with all these other religions? So I've been really researching that, and then I've been looking into matriarchies, and those don't even seem all that beneficial to women. I don't know. I'm still learning a lot on this topic.
Mm. Yeah, no, that's a great attitude to have.
I was going to say, I think it's ironic when, theists claim that, it's not that women are seen as lesser, just a different role. Recognizing that just the fact that you're trying to fit individuals into roles based on nothing but your delusions, or everything like purity culture, for example, that if you don't fit this standard, you're lesser than. It's just, it's just sad.
But yeah. So I actually will address this just real fast. There's a thing that scrolls across the bottom every episode, and you just have to email us. I don't know why it's hard. I guess it's as hard as theists make it out to be. Atheists haven't had an issue, want to come on. They seem to somehow figure out how to go to their email and type it in and somehow use their eyes at the bottom of the screen. If you can do that, then yes, it's not about big talkers. It's about just come on and just have a conversation, John.
And look, if we won't talk over you. We'll allow you to say your piece and then respond after. We try to keep it as respectful as possible, but
we try to stick to a topic and then just go with that. So there's at least a theme of the show. But whatever you want to, if you want to have just an open discussion, we can do that as well.
So, Mike, did you want to add anything? Or?
Well, yeah. So I would say it's a good attitude for you for anything to say. There's more I want to look into, regardless of what it would be. Like if it's like philosophy or religion or someone else's beliefs. I think that's always the best attitude to have in that sense. But with the what you said about the kind of the women rights, there's that's the thing I kind of stick to a lot on that is look at Exodus 21, as a prime example of the role of children being born into chattel slavery versus women who don't get to go out free like the men, as per Exodus 21:7. Where it's as someone who's never grown up in religion, it was very clear for me just to look at it and go, oh, okay, this was made by misogynistic men, and they just wanted the power that they have right at the time and to continue that. I've never understood that, because the only people I hear kind of relay the opposite are Christians that are just having to either defend, some horrible nature of slavery or some horrible nature of the fact that, women are to be silent or things like that. And it's what they meant was, it's that's why for me, it was always a red flag with the religion. It's they don't give it a good fair shot, with the text alone. I don't have to listen to what even someone else's rationalization about it. I just look at the text and I'm like, dude, this is not, it's not conducive for any aspect of truth. And you could say, well, how do you know? I don't. But from my vantage point, I'm hedging my bets against that. That's for sure, because there's no epistemic justification for me to even warrant the value of the claims. But then at the same time, it's just all the shit that goes with it. It's how are you going to profess this moral, nature when you're literally doing things that are objectively wrong from my perspective as a moral realist? So
yeah.
Real quick question from Autumn. How have you become so knowledgeable in Hebrew and hermeneutics?
Messianic Judaism. Most of our services included Hebrew songs, so I learned a lot of Hebrew. I couldn't go to Israel and speak the language because biblical Hebrew is a little different. And then we had Hebrew classes, and we had Torah sessions every morning, and then real deep discussions on the Old Testament, because the New Testament makes absolutely no sense without it. It's very contingent upon it. And so, just an obsession about the church I went to and the Bible, just studying it for myself. I went years without ever watching TV. I just like I should do like a Bible tour, and I'll just show you the crazy shit that it's just full of notes and stuff like that. Cause it was my research. It was so.
That's great.
Yeah. Well,
I think.
Oh,
go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, well, yeah, don't tell certain people that, like in the comments, where they're just gonna paint you in a picture while thinking you're doing the same to Christians. When you're like, yeah, I have this whole, I went through a lot of understanding. Like you learned a completely different language, right? I mean, like,
so let me just address that real quick. This, he says, what is really amazing is that you guys don't realize you're applying denominational restrictions to religion at large. Not really. I deal with individuals, and the labels mean nothing to me because people within the labels disagree with each other. So I asked individuals, like, what is it you believe and why do you believe it? That doesn't mean that I don't recognize the patterns shared in ideologies like this. There are certain things that are the core of ideology and groupthink that are present. So both, that isn't something that I'm going to pretend isn't there. But doesn't mean that I expect everybody to believe exactly the same. So that's just silly. So here's something that I've been wanting to ask you for a while, ever since I found your channel. What are your feelings about progressive Christianity?
I have no idea. I'm still trying to figure it out. Is it harmful? Is it helpful? Could it breed something in the future as problematic? Philosophically, I have a whole bunch of questions regarding that. Because on one hand, I believe completely eradicating religion is most beneficial for society. On the other hand, I can't say that for sure because we don't know. And could it lead to a generation of nihilists? Possibly. So I think progressive Christianity is productive in the sense that it's pro-science, it's inclusive of, the LGBTQ community. They don't seem to take the Bible literally, but it's still the perpetuation of Jesus being this divine being, which I could talk on. And then it keeps the Bible in circulation. Like, I think we should just completely stop producing this book. It's like, if we can get rid of Dr. Seuss books for undertones of hidden racism, we should be able to get rid of a book that is blatantly homophobic. It's just, so that's what problems I have with progressive Christianity is it's just perpetuating this cycle. I'm very black and white though. So people are saying, this is the gray, this is just the next step until it's completely gone. But I don't think we have the time to just slowly transition away from it when we are this generation of, there's just facts all over the computer. And I don't know why. I don't know. I don't know what it does for people. I think it's delusional. I don't know. I don't want to be offensive, but I don't get it. I do not get it. I don't understand it. What is the point? It doesn't make sense to me.
I'm of two minds about it. Like on one hand, I don't think it's as defensible intellectually given what the books say. Like, it seems like you have to do severe mental gymnastics and verbal gymnastics to get to this picture. On the other hand, I think the world would be a better place if someone had to be a Christian, then I would obviously prefer that someone was a progressive Christian.
Correct.
Because that's going to be more aligned with actual values and morals that I agree with. Mm-hmm. But yeah, obviously, I agree with you. Like, we would all be better off if these delusions could be eradicated altogether. But maybe it's one of those things where we have to go through a detoxing that may be slower paced to then eventually get there.
I don't know where they derive their substance to like, if you don't have the Bible, what is the point?
Well, they think they do. I mean, they think they have the Bible. They just think they have a very different interpretation of the Bible that I don't understand. But I want to have more progressive Christians. I think we had one, and I thought that was an interesting conversation. I would like to bring more on at some point in the future. But yeah, maybe we can have you back at some point when we have a progressive Christian. I'd love to watch that.
So many questions.
Yeah, I think that'd be really cool.
Would you guys want to do a Q&A at any point? Or we can get some questions lined up from some people.
I have 2 more questions.
I just wanted to throw this thing up on the screen so that it takes people to get questions in their head sometimes. So
gotcha.
I'm going to throw that up on the screen. You guys get those 2 questions there.
Yeah. I was going to ask you.
I want to make sure
do you have any
going over time? That's all.
Do you have any favorite Bible verses?
Is this like my favorite Bible verse because it's just wacky, or just ones I use on a daily basis?
Both. Anything that you want to just bring up?
1 John 3:4 is my favorite because it points out the error in the fact that the new covenant has done away with the law. So that one's kind of my favorite to use. And I think it's Matthew 18, where Jesus says, "I did not come to abolish the law, but to fulfill it." So those 2 are my favorite because I'm constantly picking apart the theology of Christianity understood today. And so those are my go-tos.
Where, this will be the last question. From your perspective, where do you think that we can derive meaning and morality from?
I don't know. I don't know why the topic of morality is such a big deal for the proof of a God's existence. I think morals are just an agreed upon set of rules. And
what, you've never heard of if objective morals and values exist, then God exists?
Yeah,
objective
right?
morals and values exist, therefore God exists? I mean, it's just modus ponens. It basically proves it, right? It's just like saying that if the moon is made of cream cheese, then it's Tuesday. The moon's made of cream cheese, so it's Tuesday, right? It's like, oh my God, it's so dumb.
I don't get why it's so used. It doesn't make any sense. But I think morality is subjective. I mean, we are the subject. We make the rules. If we're not here, and we've seen it change throughout history. And I think the only way to claim moral objectivity is to first prove that your God exists. Because how many claims of moral objectivity does every God have? You have to prove he exists before you can even make that claim.
And then you have a worse issue with how you get away from it being inherently subjective. That if God can, if this is a morality thing, like how God can do action X, but it's wrong for everyone else to murder babies. It's like, well, that's not objective. That's literally the opposite of objective.
Well, I want to just respond to them real quick because I think people often, conflate. And I think I see this with Christians all the time. The idea of subjective with entirely vacuous. Like, yeah, I agree with you. It comes from us in a sense. We're subjects, and everything we experience is subjective. That doesn't mean that there isn't an objective nature to it. So I am actually more a realist. I think moral truth does exist. I just think that we can ground it in consciousness and facts about consciousness and its nature, as opposed to any kind of authority, arbitrarily saying you must do X, Y, or Z. So, yeah, but I think that's a fair response there.
That makes sense to me.
And also, I'm gonna add one thing to Otangelo because he keeps asking how the face got there. Me and Witter already figured this out. So my face looks a lot like what was on the Shroud of Turin. If you actually look at the date, Jesus, we'll just say 0, right? And we'll go to the Shroud of Turin, 1300. That's 1300 years. It's 2021. I'm actually closer to the date of the actual dated shroud. It's actually more likely that it would be my face than it would be of a man 1300 years ago. So we solved the case. Mystery solved, Otangelo. It is my face. It's more reasonable.
One other thing for this question, Otangelo, go back to our other videos on morality that we've done on this channel, where I explain why it is that we can say from a naturalist perspective why slavery is wrong. Watch those videos, then still mend my position, meaning communicate my position back to me to see if you actually understood it, and then tell me where your issues lie, or how you think that you can defeat my argument there. So
sweet. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, get those ready. Did you say that was your last one?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got one here. Does Bitty have more truth bombs about the Bible up her sleeve, like the one about only pagans being allowed to celebrate birthdays? I thought she said my pagans. I was like, what?
Not on the spot. Typically, I go off of people's comments, and I can quickly break apart. I can't think of one.
It's hard to do on the spot. Yeah, that's for sure.
Truth bombs.
Here's one. Do you think religion is useful, or do you think the world will be a better place if religion disappeared?
I think this is a struggle that I have. Because I don't think we've ever experienced a world without religion, so I don't know what that would look like. I'm afraid of nihilism in that sense, which I think is a irrational fear if we went that direction. So is that better then? I don't know. I think if we had a sense of spirituality, I would hope that it would be this oneness, that perhaps we are connected to one another through love. I don't know. But religion as it is today is harmful for sure. I mean,
I would like to
that back through history.
I'd like to placate your fears about atheism leading to nihilism, because I think from my perspective, there's absolutely no connection whatsoever.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I look at consciousness like meaning factories. Like we exist, and therefore in our experience, we value certain things and devalue other things. The fact that my life is going to end at some point doesn't make the kind of life I have meaningless, because I'm alive to experience it. And I'd rather have a certain kind of life than one where I'm just suffering or hurting people. Like love and empathy and this kind of things still matter because of the results that they bring to the lives that we lead. And so all meaning is engaging in that which fulfills us. And that doesn't have to come from religion. It can come from anything that we care about. Our families, our friends, our careers, our passions. All these things can bring us meaning and can take us away from any kind of nihilism. The fact that I know at some point I'm going to die doesn't concern me in that sense. Like, it doesn't strip away any of the purpose that I feel about my life. Mm-hmm. A song isn't less beautiful because it ends at some point. Like things have value simply by the fact of what it is that they are, how they're experienced, what they bring to us. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about nihilism. I mean, I've been an atheist most of my life. I've never bought into nihilism even slightly. Like, it just never made sense to me. And if you look at a lot of existentialist philosophers who were atheists, who dealt with the questions of meaning, you're not going to find many of them spiraling to nihilism as though that would be the only option available. You shouldn't worry about that.
Yeah. I also want to just give everybody a shout out in the comments for just applying reductios to Otangelo's dumbass modus ponens argument, which is if objective moral values exist, then God exists. Objective moral values exist, and therefore God exists. I liked this one. We had a bunch of different opportunities here. If tentacles exist, then Cthulhu exists. Tentacles exist, therefore Cthulhu exists. Here we go. Let's go. If glitter exists, the glitter fairies exist. Glitter exists, therefore fairies exist. So I had an awesome one here that I think I already said, but it's, if it's Saturday, then here it is. Then the moon is made of cream cheese. It is Saturday, therefore the moon is made of cream cheese. We're gonna have a little lesson about propositional logic real quick. Valid syllogism. Everyone we have presented are valid syllogisms. They are not sound. Premise 1 has not been demonstrated to be true in all of the things that we have said. And yours suffers the same exact issue. So just throwing that out there. But
yeah, like I said, Otanjo, this idea that naturalism can't ground morality is just not true. And to say nihilism is the only logical outcome, you are ignorant of a century and more than that, like literally centuries of philosophy, and most of existentialism. So go educate yourself on those things, show that you've understood those things, and then come back to talk to us. But these are just claims you're making without any kind of understanding of what this is.
And just by a simple principle of parsimony, I can show in everything that's been listed, from uniformity to nature to logic to moral values, that you're just adding an extra assumption that you don't actually need there. And then it's worse for you because all those things just become brute contingencies, like in some weird way where I would love to have Otangelo back on. We could talk about the logic thing. That would be great, as well as the other person that was in here. But anyway, yeah, there's another question here. Oh, I think it's that person. If you need proof of God's existence, do you mean the equivalent of a mathematical proof or cumulative case of evidence?
Well, you answer that first. I'm gonna jump on.
Oh, what?
Oh, you, Bitty.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, me? You said
You
you
on
need
the
proof
spot.
of God's existence. Do you mean the equivalent of a mathematical proof or a cumulative case of evidence? Just any. I have no idea. I don't know.
So I would say that that's like just a false dichotomy to put out there as a cumulative case of evidence or mathematical proof. No, you need a novel prediction. You need something that you can say, if this is the case, you can make a prediction off of it. You can test that prediction in the future. If you can't do that with something from my epistemological framework, then it's not worth value to me. Now, if you say, oh, well, that's your fault. You have a rocky epistemic framework. Well, okay, show me. And then also show me where yours is better or a different one. Because as far as I'm concerned, nobody ever can provide me the other tool. They can just talk about it. But yeah, so I would say that that's not quite the dichotomy you've laid it out to be.
I just think plus if there was evidence, like which God, and if it's the God of the Bible, like what does that do for me at this point? I don't want to worship a narcissistic, psychopath. So I don't know. I'm a hard theist on that one.
Sure, I don't think anything's worthy of worship, to be honest. That's like one of my kind of tenets that I subscribe to. But
I'll say I have no problem with the idea of cumulative evidence. Like I'm not going to say that we need necessarily mathematical proof. Like I would be okay with believing something if it had a good evidence for it. I don't need certainty, just good enough evidence. I'm yet to see one argument from a theist that is even remotely convincing on any level. If anybody has some that aren't just misconceptions about science, or saying because God told me so, come on and provide it, and I'll see like that. Like the mere fact that we exist is evidence that God exists. As long as that is your argument, that just that's nothing.
If God existed, this wouldn't be so difficult. I'm just so annoyed with that. The lack of arguments. Yeah. But I like how he says, I don't know God's character and nature.
As someone who's never grown up with it, I've never had any experience of the supernatural, ghosts, the paranormal, healings, all that type of shit. I've always thought that was weird from the offset. I've never had those experiences, and maybe that could be the reason. I just need one. But it seems odd to me that when everybody's brought these things up, they're indistinguishable from nothing at all. Literally, You have two things, one just being nothing, and then the thing you believe in. And I can't tell the fucking difference between the two, because it seems that the thing you believe in is just synonymous with nothing at all. It doesn't have any actual impact if it did exist. It doesn't manifest itself. It only does when you think it does manifest itself. And I saw this video I thought was really great. This guy just poking fun of it. He was like, hey, God, there's a bunch of people starving in Africa right now. Like, what do we do? What do we do? What do I tell them? He's like, just tell them I work in mysterious ways. And he's like, no, they're not buying that anymore. Like, we need to get a better a better argument here. They're not buying into that. And it's true in the sense of like, people are smartening up. They're realizing they're listening to their parents, listening to things that they say and go, that doesn't fucking make any sense. That makes no sense at all. And they're leaving the religion, the faith. And I think that this is something that's like, I'm on the aspect that religion should just be gone, but I'm also on the aspect that I don't want to take that right away from anybody. Right. I would like to see it just have its natural course of fading out. But at the same time, it's just like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. You're like, I a priori assessed in the chair a God. Why can't you do that for an apple? Like, you can't prove the fucking existence of an apple sitting in your fucking armchair, but of course you can do it with God and just off of contingent things that you think are the case. That drives me fucking nuts.
Another thing I don't understand is like this question here. Whatever questions that you want to bring about science and its potential limitations, I may even agree with some of that, but that is completely irrelevant to the God question. It's not like you look at the limitations of science and somehow go from there to therefore God. Like even the question of the theists love to ask is, why is there something rather than nothing? I don't know, neither do you. Like, it's not like saying God did it answers that question. You're just assuming and stating that to be the case. It's not evidence of anything.
Yeah, as a programmer as well, or getting his degree in programming right now, that what you said just sounded like you wanted to use esoteric language and acting like that meant something, but like as someone from my field, like that doesn't mean anything. Like that's not indicative or relevant to your post hoc rationalization that a God would be responsible. So yeah, that's just a weird thing to say from my perspective. But what do I know? I'm not just paying money to learn this shit. But okay. Let's go.
Anything else? Do you have any other questions?
I think there was a lot of them that we might have missed, so I apologize if that was the case. If we exist, then nope, that's Witter. There was a lot of Otangelo, but we'll have him back on for another episode. So, was this one asked?
Yeah, that was asked.
Okay, that's right.
No, that's just. It's ridiculous.
How do you know that your memory wasn't created 5 minutes ago, or that life was created five minutes ago with all your memories intact? I mean, this is just a stupid argument. When I went on when I went on Truth Wanted the first time, Canadian Catholic called in and was like, "How do you know God isn't deceiving you?" Like, I don't know. I also don't know that a demon didn't create me and with my memories all attached 5 minutes ago. It's just an unfalsifiable claim that you're making. Like, I'm not going to side on that because there's an infinite amount of hypotheses I could come up with. It could be a demon wearing a hat that deceived me. It could be a demon wearing two hats that deceived me. It could be two demons that deceive me. You could do this forever. And so, like, at no point do I think you make any progress thinking of the infinite amount of things at which could be the real, ontology or real nature or whatever. So, but anyway. Anyway, so yeah, if that's it, well, I guess we conclude. We're about at the time we usually end. But if you guys have anything else that you want to go over or anything, we can do that. It's all up to you.
I just want to say that I love what you're doing. I think it's really beneficial, and I hope you continue to do what you're doing, because I think the world needs more people that really engage the Bible honestly and hold people accountable for their own hypocrisy. So yeah, that I love your channel, and I hope you come back on at some point.
Thank you. I'd love to come back on.
So,
all right.
Real quick, I'll just address this thing. I literally built and sold tech company Einstein Programming, buddy.
I'm not saying he doesn't. I'm just saying it just didn't, like, somebody from my perspective, maybe I'm missing something. It just sounded like it didn't, like, it just sounded like a clear post hoc rationalization, or just like, my first objection would be that I don't think what you're indicating is actually there. But even if I was to grant that, like, I don't see how you just go to that assumption. For me, you need the prediction. You need the way to be able to test that in the future. We'd be able to see this. I don't see that. I just see that as a post hoc rationalization and comparing that to things and making a fallacy of analogy to compare that to how a human might program something. But that to me is, we could get into that conversation at some point. But
lastly, I'll just say to this, again, not to say that the consensus equals true, but when you're talking about these things in science as though they're pointing to creationism or to intelligent design, it doesn't. Like, the consensus in the field is quite clear. Intelligent design is not a theory. Just doesn't make null predictions. It's just a narrative and assumptions that you make based on what you want to be true. So these are just not, these are not arguments that anybody with who actually are experts in the field still take seriously. These arguments are coming from theists and people who don't understand science very well.
Sure.
That's not to say you don't have religious scientists, but usually they can separate the two and be honest about what the science is actually saying. So,
yeah.
But
Betty, thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it, and it was a very fun conversation. I like the ones where we just get to kind of shoot the shit and stuff like that. So it's fun for me. I will say, John, stick around if you want. I got a clip at the end I think you might be interested in. Sometimes I like to go online and just mess with people. I like to have the serious conversations, and other times I just like to have fun. It's usually only to make myself laugh, but yeah, just stick around. I think it would be funny if you watched it. But anyway, guys, take care. We appreciate it. We'll see y'all next time. Peace out.
Thanks, guys.
See the contradiction there? It's self-refuting.
I can actually show you where that's wrong, if you'd like, real fast. Like, I don't want to bark up the wrong tree or anything, but a picture's worth 1,000 words, and a penny, a penny saves a penny.
What is wrong?
Well, hold on. So you're comparing apples to oranges. I just want to say that, do unto others as you would do to yourself, and you don't want to count your chickens before they hatch. I don't want to cry over. Hold on, real fast. I don't want to cry over spilt milk. I also don't want to give up my day job or put all my eggs in one basket. But to give a taste of your own medicine.
Okay,
I don't want to go on. Well, hold on, I'm not done.
Sandy, mute this freaking talking point spewing. He's a troll. Kick him out.
It's a piece of cake. He's
literally reading off a bunch of
let the cat out of the bag. You're on face, and once in a blue moon. I just want to play the devil's advocate for saving for a rainy day.
Standing, pay attention.
But listen. The early bird gets the worm because the elephant's in the room. There's other fish in the sea. There's no such thing as a free lunch. You can't throw caution to the wind, and you can't have your cake and eat it too. Do you understand that, John?
Okay,
so what I want to say is that there's no snowball's chance in hell.
Okay, here I muted him real quick. So Chris, unmute yourself.
He's reading a list for the last 2 minutes, bro. He's reading a list of
I thought he was reading a list
of catchphrases. He's doing nothing but catchphrases. Kick him out.
Yeah, so Chris, are you here to troll, or are you interested in actually responding to the arguments, claims? I'm going to unmute you. So convince us you're not here to troll, and you're here to actually have a cordial discussion. Just a second.
No. Listen. So you didn't let me get there. Like, listen. So I'll get to the point. I'm sorry.
He's going to waste our time.
No, I'm not. The ball is in your court. What I'm trying to say is you don't want to spill the beans because
kick him out.
Yeah.
Idiot.
No idea what.
Wow, so that's some heavy-hitting atheist philosophy.
That was